if Deku was Soldier Boy Part 1? Now, this is another boys what if on My Hero Academia. Now, I am going to be doing a request video for a boys what if on a different anime. If you guys want to decide, look in the comments like a Bell or Black Clover what if. I haven't done a Black Clover what if in a long time. I actually want to do that again. Or maybe even a straight up Naruto what if. Like, what if Naruto had A-Train's powers or something like that, or what if Naruto had Compound V, something like that. So you guys know in the comments if there's a suggestion for a boys what if, or even a live action fan fiction on the boys TV show if you guys want that. But this is going to be what if Deku was Soldier Boy, and this is probably going to be one of my last Deku the boys like merge what ifs I'm going to be doing. So I'm not going to be doing any new ones. I'm probably going to stick with the 3 I have now. What if Deku was Homelander? What if Deku was Black Noir? And also, what if Deku was Soldier Boy? So I'm gonna be doing that. I may it's a very thin line, or very thin, like a really big maybe that I might. What if Deku had Yui's powers? And Deku's more like a Huey, anyway. So I might do that. But you guys can go in the comments and say yes or no if I should do that or what. But enough talking, because I hate when YouTubers do this. So let's just dive right into the story and this fan fiction. So we start our story off with Izuku Midoriya and his origin and how he would play into the world of this universe. Now, in my past what ifs, I always go into detail how this universe is, made with Compound V and everything and how it exists in this world. But in this world, Compound V does get made, but it isn't still current or valuable in the modern day society. So Bot would have made their big, thing, like everything would have played out the same, and they would have selected a few children to become the first of only a couple Compound V injected babies or superhumans. And Deku would be picked from birth, being one of the very first babies that would be exposed to Compound V. As Deku would be exposed to Compound V, as Deku over the course of his whole lifespan or his whole childhood, he would be documented in a lab. But not just a lab, he would go back and forth, and he would actually be raised in a barn area in the forest, as he would still have a childhood, and he would be raised by his actual biological parents. His pretty much uncle wasn't actually his uncle, it was a spy that was keeping an eye on pretty much Deku his whole life. As Deku would be American, except for he wouldn't be American instead for Japanese. He would be American, and Deku would have, for some reason, he would still have green hair because of the Compound V. So Deku, basically over the course of his life, he would have pretty much been raised similar to the same. A normal American child in the time, pretty much near World War II. So, pretty much put it simple, Deku had an okay childhood, and he wasn't really, raised in a tube like Homelander. So he wasn't as statistical and maniac, or not maniac, I guess not even a word, but pretty much a maniac like Homelander. So during this time, Deku would have grown up, puberty would have hit, and his powers would have become stronger over the course of a couple years. Eventually, Deku turning about, let's say, 16, going on 17, as Deku would basically be, given his first mission out on the field, aka the Payback Team mission, as he would meet up with other Compound V users, or not Compound V users, but other Compound V babies or children. And they would be in their teens as well. In this canon, it'd be in a teen team of pretty much the version of, pretty much all the people on Payback in this universe, this universe's version of Payback, they would have all been teenagers. So Deku in this group would have been assigned to help a certain group down in the same area the original fight would have gone down, just like in comics, or just like in the show. As most of the fight would have played out the same, Swado, or this universe's version of Swado, would have made himself present, as he would have taken a joy flight again, pretty much giving away their position, as Deku and the rest of the whole, Payback team had to start the fight. Crimson, whatever, I forgot her second name to her hero name, but basically Crimson, majority of all of them died. None of them survived, except for pretty much Black Noir and Daku, or this universe's version of Black Noir. Now, during this time, Deku would have survived barely, as he would be clinging on to life, as he would be captured by the enemy force. Over the course of a few decades, after, the world would have moved on and heroes from pretty much that back would have died out. They would have forgot about those. And sometimes even some of them saying it was a myth, but everybody knowing that was around that time that they were real. So we switch a couple years later, a couple decades later, as we get switched to the first appearance of quirks all around the world. Eventually, the quirk evolution, or pretty much the quirk, integrated into society, and over time, pretty much the canon My Hero universe would have been made the exact same way. Compound V or VOT would have gone out of business after their first superhero team did a huge flop, and in this world, they didn't take another chance, and they did not make more Compound V soups. And they started to become a hero company after quirks would have started to manifest. So after quirks would manifest, they would have become a hero company, and pretty much been simple. The hero company would have been on par with Endeavor's hero company, them making support items and also pretty much providing money and also all sorts of other different stuff to heroes that are, on the job. Like houses or just a whole pretty much mansion if they really want it, if they do enough, crime fighting. And mainly for publicity and other things like that, they would do interviews. And VOT in this world would be similar, the same, just with quirk people and them not being as, obligated to work with VOT too much, since VOT, didn't give them their powers, since they would have had their powers on their own because of quirks. So VOT would have just became a really big hero company and support item pretty much factory. Now during this time, we would get switched to Deku's story. Years, decades would have gone by, and Deku would have been treated similar to the same as, well, the Soldier Boy in this, or in the Boys universe, the TV show. So, pretty simple. I am gonna put my little my own twist for Soldier Boy, more of a Bucky Barnes type story, but also still Soldier Boy-ish. And a little bit of the comic book Soldier Boy, but the comic book Soldier Boy kind of sucks, but we're not gonna get into that. So, pretty simple. Deku would have woken up, and he would have broken out of his tube pretty easily, just kicking it open. As he would have looked around, as he would see pretty much desecrated crumble all over his, area, as it would just be completely demolished. As Deku would be looking around, as he would get out of his pod, as he would start to look around, being very confused on where he was. As Deku would stop dead in his tracks, as he would have looked over multiple dead corpses and other people under rubble, them being dead. Seeing that looking like the bodies were here for a couple weeks. As Deku would have looked around, as he would have gone into the town nearby, a couple miles away from Japan, as Deku would have been looking in here, as he would be pretty much, brought to this other facility from Russia into a more secure area near Japan. As Deku would have done this, as Deku would have gone to a nearby town or village area in the forest area, going the opposite direction of the city, as he would have found a little poster of what year it was, and the day, and the date. As Deku would have realized that he was locked away by the Russians and pinned in a tube for years. As Deku would have been overall confused and distraught, as his whole life would have been flashed before his eyes. He hasn't even had a relationship. He literally, his whole life was taken away from him. He should be about 60 or something years old. He should be decades years old. But put it simple, Deku just brushed away his thought, but was still having it hang in the back of his head. As Deku would have gone to the city, as he would be in pretty much a very, very, very tight green spandex type suit that would have all sorts of markings and also have a number tag 136, something for them to pretty much specify, or let's just say categorize Soldier Boy as they were experimenting on him. So Deku would start to walk around, as some of the locals that were pretty much really big hero fans, and even hero fans before quirks were still a thing, or were a thing, they would have recognized Soldier Boy. One of the kids there in the village would have been a huge fan of the VOT heroes back in the day before quirks became a real big thing. Before, quirks even became a thing, as Compound V was the only way to get powers back in the day. As one of the kids would have recognized Deku from one of the posters in his room, as Deku would have been one of the most famous and one of the first heroes in this universe. As Deku would have looked around, as he would have looked up, as he would see the kid gawking towards him, as he would have just, automatically grouped him in as a, pretty much fanboy, as he would just walked off, him smirking, saying, "I still got it." As he says, years have passed and people still look up to me. Basically, Deku sits near a pond area far away from the edge of the pretty much village as he looks around. As Deku looks at his body, feeling different, trying to see if his strength is still there. As Deku breaks and pretty much plows through a couple trees easily and starts to pretty much punch through rock and stuff like that, just doing super soldier type stuff, just doing backflips and running really fast. As Deku eventually figures out his energy blast ability, as Deku feels really weird, and this will be near midnight of that night, as Deku's adrenaline, or I guess Deku's stamina would have been incredibly powerful since he was, a suit. So Deku would have started to feel very bad or very hot, like he was sweating his cells out. Like he felt like he was sweating blood or bullets out of his body. So Deku started to look around as he would see his chest would start to glow. As he would rip his suit or little spandex suit he had on that the Russians put on his body, he would take it off as he would look at his chest and he would see his ribs glow and a red light would have blasted out of his chest, it destroying the whole pond. Pretty much simulating the same thing Cyclops did, I think on the Phoenix movie back in the 2000s. So he would because he lasered through the, I'll put a GF right here, but pretty simple. So after that, Deku would have passed out, and we switched hours later as Deku would have been in the village church as he would have walked around. As he would have started to walk around, being very confused on pretty much where he was. As he would have wanted to talk to one of the local boys or one of the local kids and basically ask, where is he? And basically, the kid would have started to speak Japanese. As Deku would be very much confused, saying, "What the heck are you saying, man? Jibber jabble." As he would just smack the kid upside the face and tell him to speak English, dummy. As Deku would have still had that soldier boy mentality and anger, and also a little bit of racism. Since Soldier Boy was born and raised in those times, he's different. So basically, the boy starts to cry as when his mother walks up and pretty much tells Deku to back off, or tells pretty much Deku, or pretty much yells at Deku to back off. As Deku pretty much stands up because he was on knee level with the kid. As Deku looks for his mother and is about to beat her up or smack her, since back then Deku was not taught to give any women respect. As Deku was about to punch the woman or just sock her, as one of the pro heroes in the village would have started to jump in. As he would have told Deku to back off, as Deku would have looked at the pro hero saying, "So you're a hero." And finally, someone speaks English here. As pretty much the pro hero would have told him to back up, as this would be like a side pro hero. His quirk was some sort of telepathy ability. He can move objects as big as a car around like nothing, but anything bigger than that he couldn't hold. And also he couldn't hold anything too strong, or else his pretty much mind would be overpowered with, his quirk. So the pro hero told Deku to back up and pushed him backwards, or pushed him, pretty much into some concrete on the floors in the town, as Deku would have gotten back up. As Deku would have grabbed a nearby pipe on the floor, as he would have chucked it straight up spear style, piercing right towards the pro hero's head, killing the pro hero instantly. The pro hero pretty much being caught off guard by Deku's inherent incredible speed and strength, as the pro hero would instantly be murked. As everybody in the town would have started to freak out as they would have ran off, as none of them would have recorded this, and basically none of them would have had their phones on them. So Deku fled the scene. As we get switched hours, the days, the weeks later, as Deku would have been in a nearby abandoned warehouse, as he would pretty much get his hands on a tablet, as he would have been looking up history, all sorts of other stuff, him catching up with majority of all the history and historical events that have passed, with pretty much, diversity also as well. And basically Deku just brushing up on everything that happened after he was taken by the Russians and all the historical events that happened. Him also checking up on the pretty much, payback team, as he would have seen that the only two survivors were pretty much Black Noir and Swaddle. But Swaddle dies soon after when he was hospitalized because, well, in this canon, Swaddle was blown up, but his body was partially burned to smithereens like Darth Vader. They would try to resuscitate him, but he died on the hospital bed. So pretty much Black Noir is the only current, pretty much, survivor of the Payback team. As Deku looks up Black Noir's pretty much, well, address as he goes there, immediately him picking up some street clothes, pretty much getting on his way down through the city. As he gets to the city, as he walks down the streets, as he sees all sorts of couples, people, and quirked users, and also people that have mutation quirks and stuff like that, him just walking past them with no big problem. As he would look up on all of these things, him not being extremely, caught off guard, but him still being kind of, well, pretty much just say shocked by all of this happening so fast, and him literally not being able to, well, grow with the times. As Deku eventually gets to Black Noir's address, as he opens the door and he looks at Black Noir. As Black Noir is pretty much zenning, and it would be a Japanese style type, pretty much area, as this would be in Japan. As Black Noir would have looked at Deku, basically being very much confused and overall shocked on why Deku is still alive, as he saw him get kidnapped by the pretty much Russians, as he was like badly knocked out by the Russians. They had some sort of gun that knocked out Deku. So Deku looked towards Black Noir and told him, so what's going on here? As Black Noir gets up and pretty much starts to write on a tablet that's connected to the pretty much house speakers, as it would have been speaking pretty much automatically audiobook style towards pretty much Deku. As Deku would have said, "Oh, I remember, you can't talk." As he gets told pretty much everything that happened with the Seven in this universe, the Seven are existing in this universe, just it being comprised of more quirked individuals. Like this universe is A-Train, the Deep, Starlight, all of them. None of them really face too many problems, and the boys don't exist because pretty much, well, who wants to fight against a superhero team? And if they do try to do anything stupid, like it's multiple people that can be born at any time of the day that can totally mark out or wipe out the whole 17, because it's endless possibilities on what a person's quirk could be. So pretty much the Seven doesn't really have the boys in this universe, and the Seven does exist in this universe, like the Deep, A-Train, and everybody else. They are quirked individuals except for Homelander. Homelander is a compound B lab rat in this universe, pretty much him being artificially made to try to make the best or strongest quirk. So Homelander still exists, but the Seven are mainly stationed in America, and they pretty much Black Noir is just on vacation. As Black Noir tells Soldier Boy all of this, as Soldier Boy is very much confused, or Deku is very much confused, as Deku pretty much says, "So where am I gonna sleep?" As pretty much Black Noir says, "This is my address." No, he doesn't say that, but he does write down that this is his address, and also that he stays here when he goes on, pretty much, vacation to Japan, because he likes the zen, and he also likes the area of it. Also, for some reason, Black Noir is the biggest, most popular American hero that is in Japan. Like Homelander, no one in Japan really likes Homelander too much, except for people that are obsessed with America that live in Japan. So pretty much simple, Black Noir writes to Deku, telling him that he could stay here as long as he wants, just not to bring too much attention to himself. As Black Noir is very much taller than Deku, and way more older than him since the years have passed on him. As Deku tells Black Noir how you've grown up, as Black Noir says, "Yeah, and you haven't." As Deku is very much confused and just pretty much, scoffs at this, since Deku is physically and also mentally still a child. He was still experimenting on, and his, level of patience has ran very thin over the years. But pretty much bit simple, Deku is still 16 years old. So pretty much time-wise, he should be way more older, but physically and mentally, Deku is still 16. As Deku asks pretty much Black Noir, like the rules and everything. As Black Noir gives him a paper that says all the rules of My Hero Academia, or the whole entire thing of how to become a pro hero, as Black Noir had to get a license when the times changed. As Black Noir tells, pretty much, it was Deku, or writes Deku, telling him or asking him yes or no, does he want to become a hero? As he does think about this, thinking that he was a hero for only a couple years before he was captured, and these new times and everything like that. And he wants to still become a hero, wants to get that fame back, wants to renew himself. As Deku is told by Black Noir that you have to change your, pretty much features up because, well, you're kind of dead. And basically Black Noir doesn't tell him this, but he does write this to him. So pretty much Black Noir, and every time I say Black Noir says something, I mean he wrote it, or either did sign language. And for some reason, surprisingly, Deku was taught sign language because he did work with Black Noir, and Black Noir was the only person on his team he respected. So pretty much Deku, well, respected Black Noir, and over time, Black Noir taught Deku and also trained him, and Deku would have came back to society near the time the 10-month art training would have began. So Black Noir on his vacation would have had vacation time to himself, but on the weekends, on Monday and Tuesday, he would train Deku pretty much more and more, trying to brush up on his skills and trying to make him, not be so rusty. As Deku would train and train, eventually him asking if his hero costume is still, around, as he does say that your hero costume is most likely torn up by the Russians, or either destroyed, or just overall crumbled over the years. So, pretty much pretty simple, Black Noir tells him that I have a new outfit for you, as pretty much he gives Deku the exact replica of his original outfit, it just being a lot more durable, and also a little, like a teeny bit of a darker shade of green. As Deku says, it will do, and it's kind of the exact same version of my old suit. So Deku puts it on, and is very much surprised on how, smooth and slick it feels on his body. As Deku's also given a shield made out of a very, very, quirk type material. So basically, simple, in this world, there are people that have creation quirks that can actually merge in middle or make new substances. So pretty much Deku has a new type of steel that is about the strongest steel on the face of the earth. Basically able to cut through practically anything. It's just incredibly stupidly heavy. But since Deku's super strength is a factor, and also it's very little of the indestructible steel on the front of the pretty much shield, the rest of the shield being titanium, Deku is very strong. So he's strong enough to throw it like a Thursby, like Captain America throws a vibranium shield. So yeah, so Deku pretty much trains with Black Noir over the 10-month arc training, and eventually he does sign up for UA and goes for the entrance exams, as Black Noir tells him that he has to go back to the 7 in America, as he gives pretty much, Deku a number as he walks off, pretty much getting a cab getting a cab to a private jet and flying back to America. So after that, Deku would have been in the penthouse, not the penthouse, but the house, like the Zen house that, pretty much Black Noir would live in. As Deku would have walked off, as Deku would have shown up to pretty much the entry exams, as Deku would be wearing the same type jumpsuit he wore in canon, just a little bit more of a darker shade of green. So Deku would have gotten up there, and since Deku's facial features, they changed his facial features, Deku added on freckles on his cheeks. Deku also pretty much dyed his hair a lighter green, because before I did say Deku's hair was green, but it was like a very dark green to a point where you can only tell Deku's hair was green unless you had him stand bright, straight up just in the sunlight, and majority of the time Deku had his helmet on, so no one really saw his hair too much. So Deku's hair was more or less in the back in the day, Deku's hair was midnight green. You could not see it unless you flashed the light on it directly, and you literally poked through his hair and really looked at it closely. So Deku dyed his hair a lot more greener into a more canon version of Deku's hair, and would have styled it the same way Deku's hair styled in canon. Deku would have also added the freckles on his cheek, yeah, and he would also pretty much, his eyes would still be green. He wouldn't change that up, but yeah, it was enough to just pretty much man, I can't talk today. Divine himself from Soldier Boy back in the day. As Deku gets ready, and pretty much he walks up through the gates and bumps into a Chaku like in a cannon, but he doesn't trip. He actually bumps into a Chaku shoulder to shoulder as Deku helps out the Chaku. Seeing that he's pretty cute, as Deku would have had a filter on, being taught, socially by Black Noir in terms of, videos and notes, as he shouldn't be so cruel towards women. So Deku does, with a very forced smile or grin, very sorry, as he would have picked up pretty much Ochaku, as Deku would have respect for women, but he wouldn't let women slide or talking trash to him or anything of the sorts. So if a woman told him to back up or forced him or even gave him a command, he would get extremely pissed. But other than that, Deku would have just picked up Ochaku, and one of the things he was kind of cute, actually giving off an actual genuine smile, as he would have tried to flirt with her a little bit. And some of his flirting skills would have actually held up over the years. Deku having a little bit of game, like, surprisingly. So Deku does kind of, spit his game to Ochaku. Ochaku kind of gets a little feel for Deku and pretty much says bye, and I hope you do good on the entry exam. As Deku is overall pretty much really excited for this entry exams, because he has way more experience than these other chumps, and he's probably the strongest here. So basically that's what Deku's thinking. So basically Deku does the written exam pretty well, because he did have proper education while he was being taught or supervised by Vought. So Deku did do pretty good on the pretty much written exam, and for the physical exam, aka the actual exam, would have took place. As Deku would have gotten ready, as the class would have been told to go, or the group would have been told to go after President Mike would have said the whole thing about how in a real fight it is no countdowns. As he tells them to run, as Deku, heard that before somehow or somewhere while he was with Vought training. But whatever. So Deku just brushes that along, or brushes that at the back of his head as he books it. As Deku books it past multiple other students, him going Super Soldier, pretty much booking it, him almost getting near the speed of Ida, but about like 15 to 16 feet behind him. As Deku eventually gets to a Deku eventually gets to a 1-pointer as he breaks through it pretty quickly, punching a hole through his chest. As Deku starts to just manhandle through multiple different robots, some of the times him grabbing a nearby broken off shield piece of one of the 1-pointers, using it like his own shield, throwing it Captain America style towards or through multiple other 1-pointers. As Deku takes down more 1-pointers, crushing them and kicking them up into concrete walls and other things like that, Deku eventually comes across the 0-pointer. Deku comes across the 0-pointer and is about to book it as he hears Ochaku before he leaves, as he hears a scream as he looks behind himself instinctively as he sees Ochaku, as he has a little bit of a small voice in the back of his head to tell him to just keep on running, as it's not worth it, as Deku just books it either way, for some reason him feeling heroic, as Deku wouldn't be as brutal as Canon, pretty much, or as, just such a jerk as actual Soldier Boy in like the comics and also pretty much TV show, as Deku would have booked it towards Ochaku, as he would have kicked the rubble over Ochaku pretty easily, grabbing her cradle style and booking it. As she would have started to blush, as Deku would have just started to run faster. As Deku would eventually get her to recover her girl, as Deku would have left her off there and he would have booked it back into this fake city before he can get into the fake city again, as the alarm would have gone off and Deku would have been stopped before he can get any more points. Deku would have gotten a pretty good high score, as he would have gotten a video note from UA later that pretty much week, as he would have been told that he got into UA. As Deku is super excited about this, as he's on the top three that got the best exam scores. As Deku goes to UA the next day, and basically walks into Class 1A with his Class 1A uniform on, just having the sleeves rolled up and him having a watch on his wrist with the Soldier Boy logo on it, the watch being very old, and a collectible Black Noir actually had. So Deku walks into the class, sits down, and looks around. As Deku still has the same type of red shoes he had in canon, they're just being a darker green. So Deku looks around and he spots a kid that's very familiar, and he swears he saw him somewhere online. A kid with white and red hair. Deku just brushes this off as he's pretty much out of nowhere, like straight up out of nowhere. Ochaku appears right behind him saying hi, and basically Deku freaks out and jumps out of his seat, getting into a fighting position as he recognizes that as Ochaku and lets down his guard, saying sorry, I'm really jumpy. As Ochaku says that's okay, as she starts to talk to Deku, and she actually actively flirts towards Deku, and Deku starts to flirt back as they are straight up flirting out loud to each other very hard. As majority of the class pretty much, matter of fact, Bakugo tells them to quit it, and Deku looks over to Bakugo and says, get out of this, you don't belong. Basically, Deku giving a very trashy type, comeback on Bakugo's little comment, as Bakugo gets up and says, you wanna go, nerd? As he pushes Deku, as Deku says, I haven't heard nerd in a long time. Matter of fact, no one's even called me a nerd. Basically, him saying it's gonna be the last time, and the first time anybody's gonna call me a nerd. As Bakugo says, whatever. And this is in this canon, Aizawa is out of the classroom. So Deku looks over to Ochaku and looks at the Bakugo and smirks. And he takes the chair off of the floor with one hand, and he cracks it right on Bakugo's jaw. I mean, straight up baseballs that shit right in his face. Bakugo falls down to the ground. He's flopped. He's gone. He's laid out. I mean, bro, he is laid out. I mean, he's out for the count. No countdown, no nothing. He's gone. As Bakugo's knocked out dry, as his mouth is gushing blood. Now, his jaw isn't dislocated or anything, but he did, pretty much Bakugo's nose is gushing blood. And also his tongue is also cut as well, so he's also gushing blood or bleeding from the mouth. So pretty much everybody's very much confused, and bro, straight up, what was it? Danky was recording the whole thing, basically him just overall pretty much posting this on TikTok, and just pretty much it went viral in a span of a couple of hours. Aizawa shows up to class in a couple of hours as Bakugo is dropped out of a recovery girl's office by Ida, as Ida is threatened by Deku earlier before Aizawa got into class not to say a single thing, or else he'll rip the engines out of his legs, or rip those little pipes out of his calves, as Bakugo threatens Ida, and Deku, I'm pretty sure, yeah, Deku threatens Ida, and Ida is scared of Deku, so he just backs off. So Deku in the class sits down, and pretty much, Aizawa doesn't really expect anything. Bakugo walks into class, him being fully fixed by Recovery Girl, him saying that he had to go to Recovery Girl, and he lies about how he was injured, saying that he fell. So he would sit back down, as Aizawa would tell them that he had to do a correct apprehension test. Ochaku would still make the whole thing about how that isn't fair, and Aizawa would have said, life ain't fair, honey, so you better get out there now. As he would have been handed their pretty much suits, as they all been told to go out to the training court. As they would be told to go out there, they would show up there. As Deku would be told to throw the ball first. As Deku would grab the ball and would have checked it as hard as he could, him getting a pretty good score. The long jump, Deku jumping over it with relative ease. The race, Deku gained about 4th place, and for the grip test strength, about 2nd place. So, pretty much simple, Deku got a pretty good strength in the 1st place for the grip test strength. So basically, Deku got a pretty good score, about 2nd to 3rd place. So after that, Deku pretty much was handed their syllabus. Deku and the class was handed their syllabus, and they went home. Now, the class, what they think about Deku, majority of the class members do think Deku's kind of cute, but some of the students think Deku's kind of scary. But some of them want us to be Deku's friend. So it's kind of controversial. Now, you guys can decide who should be the ship. Should it be Ochaku, or should it be pretty much somebody I don't know, maybe Kendo from class 1B, or maybe anybody from My Hero Academia lore. Because technically, legally, Deku is a couple hundred years old, legally, but physically So legally, like time-wise, how much time has passed, and physically, doesn't matter what age you are physically or legally. I think more physically, but whatever. So after that, Deku goes back home, and Deku sits down pretty much in his chair in the penthouse area, or in the house that Black Noir lives in, as Deku is just sitting there chilling. As Deku looks around, as he hears knocking at the door. As he opens the door, as he sees nobody, and he starts to get kicked in the face. As Deku looks around, as he sees footprints on the wood, as he looks around, and basically he pretty much has a flashback of pretty much the video Black Noir showed Deku of the 7, aka Translucent, is in the house. As Translucent is about to kill Deku, for some reason, Deku grabs a nearby umbrella and shoves it down pretty much Translucent's chin, but shoves it down Translucent's neck, killing him instantly, pretty much shoving through his neck and killing him, as he's able to push it with enough force to break through his skin. So Translucent is murked. As Deku looks over Translucent's dead body, as he pretty much grabs the whatever he can grab off of, he grabs Translucent's leg and drags him in the backyard, throwing him in the pond as he's invisible, no one can see the body, and for some reason his blood isn't coming out of his body. So pretty much he cleans up the blood. Translucent's corpse is thrown into the pond and dealt with, as for some reason algae, surprisingly for plot reasons, won't grow on it, or his body won't, pretty much his body will decay but nothing will grow onto it. So Deku would get rid of the pretty much umbrella he stabbed and Translucent with, and pretty much just chill, as Translucent wouldn't tell anybody he was going to Black Noir's house, and Translucent was sent there by, let's just say, somebody we won't until maybe part 3 or part 4. So it's not Homelander, it's not anybody on the 7, but it is somebody connected to Vought. So I'm gonna leave it off here, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and as always, guys, have a blessed day.